Okay, we are happy here to invite Sam in the Sparta room. And before we start with Sam, maybe I would like to thank the Sparta people to invite us to be here, because it's another space in the school that we didn't know. So it's like a discovery for me, at least. So we hope that in the future we can even continue to work together and to give like those small kind of lectures here in the space. But Sam first, who is standing next to me, who is visible, I think, already. Sam Chermayeff, that I got to know in 2010 at the Venice Biennale, when he was like project leader at that moment to organize the Venice Biennale for Kazuyo Sejima. So we know each other quite for a while now. There were students asking me, how do you know each other? So that's the first meeting we had together. Sam has 2 offices, or yeah, June14 he has in Berlin, and Sam Chermayeff Office. Why did we invite him? Because of like a personal interest and a personal appreciation for what he's doing, but also because I think what we are doing now with the exercise for the students fits perfectly with how Sam is looking to architecture. The way he's trying to deal with things that we know, with common things, and to find new ways of dealing with it or to create with it, is perfectly in how do you say that in English? I don't know. You can perfectly incorporate it in the exercise that we are dealing with. One of the references is furniture of Sam. I think it's a nice example, and I hope at least some of the students will work with it. We will still have to see. But I give the word to Sam before I start to do a lecture myself about Sam.
Thanks, Inge. Thanks a lot for having me. It's nice to be in a real lecture. I haven't given a real lecture in person, feels like forever. So thanks for having me. Thanks, Thomas. Thanks, Donatella. Thanks, Yum. Yeah, a little taller. Okay.
Can you go closer?
I can try. So I was incredibly annoyed yesterday when I started working on this lecture that you asked me for a very difficult thing, a 4x4, and reading your very complicated instructions, and I was like, fuck, how am I going to deal with this? I just want to talk about my work. But to the credit of the people in my office, they were like, no, we can do this, come on. And so Barbara in my office, who hopefully is watching, was like, okay, no, we're going to think about it, and like we're going to think about how to be consequent to this. And I'm still fighting with that, and I'll just start here. So I'm actually pretty famous for my 3-sided things relative to my square things. This is a picture of a triangle bed that we made that, apropos the 4x4 thing, is actually about its own 3 sides, but then of course about the other spaces that it creates. That's my daughter Ella in our house with Ezra, called Ella's bungalow. But the important thing to note about this bed situation, and I'll talk faster about other things as we go on, but is basically it's making 3 other spaces in the room, which I really like. So it's in fact 4 again. Meaning that like the bed is its own thing, unlike a room with a rectangular bed wherein it's always a bedroom and the other spaces are very, very leftover and relative to the bed. Somehow these corners in this room, or in any room that you put this bed into that's big enough, you somehow make a bunch of new spaces. And that's kind of, let's say, one point of our triangle fun. I put the music on. Now I can do it? All right. Simple idea. 3 is enough. This is like we got into the 3 thing. Again, 3 is enough. As often as possible, odd number legs is always better. So I'm just, chairs, very uncomfortable. 3 is good. They go in corners, although triangles actually should never go in corners. It's a thing that I tried to lie about many times. Like, it's cool, you can put it in a corner, but it never looks good in the corner. I'm fine with that. Turns out piano players don't sit on center. They sit like exactly there. Like the ass of the professional piano player is at that proportion. So it seems logical that you would have a triangular bench. And he played in the Philharmonie, just the photo's not as good. This is a balcony garden that's meant to go in the corner of your balcony. Never put it in a corner, again. 3 legs, triangle. This is actually called the 4-piece desk set, but importantly, there are only 3 legs. And this is for Arno, and I'll just switch back to talking about pure let's say our work logic. Arno Brandehuber, you probably know who he is. I think he's one of the better architects in this fine country of ours. He loves to do taxes and stuff and have papers, and he's very orderly in that way. So we decided that we would make a place for his binders, to make a place where he could hide all his various paper stacks. I should rephotograph it now. I mean, now it's insane how much stuff he has stuffed everywhere here. And then he can print out whatever thing he's trying to deal with and transfer it slowly from left to right into some kind of order. At least we made a framework for that order. I mean, I still can hardly pay my taxes at all, and I just put the papers in a pile somewhere else. And anyway, we're still on 3 on 4, right? I didn't actually make that table, but it's a good model, and somebody dug it up. And then we have this other thing of 3+1, these are observations that I did not precisely make until this assignment was given to me by you. However, I'm obviously from some leftover SANAA thing, very, very fond of thin table legs, if that should already be clear. But I started to get annoyed by other people getting annoyed with me about things wobbling. And so I started a whole new set of things where I started adding the 4th leg as something else that makes the whole thing stable and makes the thinness work and is program. I don't think I need to explain what this is, right? Same story, 3+1. And the +1 turns out to be a light, which actually makes an intimate space that, roughly speaking, is already a room. I converted, the one you have in your assignment book is a lot not as new as this one, but this one is already the leg now. And the leg, it stands better, and it's actually a tiny bit lighter than the other one. And you can probably imagine this, but there's a ridiculous steel plate under this very thin steel plate, but it's still less ridiculous than the first one. I rest my case. So we're into the 3+1 thing at the moment. We're into combining baseline program, right? I feel weird claiming the idea that I invented a chair with an umbrella on it, so I'm not going to do that. But I really, really like straightforward decisions, as you can hopefully see, and that gets hopefully more clear as this goes on. 3+1 goes, the 4th is better, and that holds the gas tank. It's it's really logical. And we're just making a lot of these things. New thing, there are more than 4 ways. This is a light that we're designing for Floss. I say that as if they've agreed to this scheme, which they have not. But I think that they will, because it's just their track with a tiny extension. And we're trying to say that one more or less €5 piece of steel makes their tracks do all those things. And trying to make a better track situation. I mean, really straightforward. And I thought, at least they can't really argue with me. For sure, they're extending me the tracks, and I can screw them together, and they'll do something about it. So I'm having a grand time about this, as you can tell. You know, it's just like a piece that's all I'm making, actually, is a triangle. And you know, it's not quite 4, right? So I thought that was fun. And then in the 4x4 thing, which I think actually does, in terms of the things that you just showed, we have this other series of things called Things on Things. I'm going to work on the naming. But basically, trying to make legs out of other things. So this is a bed, and one leg is a safe, which implies lots of things, but it's also a good place to rest your iPhone or put your gun or put your jewelry. But you can also, little kids love it. My daughter has one. The only one that exists is in her bedroom, and she puts like her doll in it. I think that's weird, but she loves her doll, so fine. You know, a little pile of bricks, one stock standard SAM leg, which is of just an angle iron, galvanized, nothing special, and a little rock. And so, but this idea that you could then like make things that must be also functions is very attractive to us in everything we're doing. I made one for someone else. Sorry, I take really bad photos, so when it's my photos, it's like set in on white, just to explain, and like other nice people take good photos. Oh, this is like a little mini story because Inga invited me here. I have like another problem in my own life where I tend to like accumulate things, if that's not perhaps clear from already however many minutes we are into this. And my house is like a chaos, and I have a 2-year-old who you already saw, Ella. And I just wanted to say, like, this kind of chaos is everywhere. And then we redid our house. We cut out that wall. Me and like a bunch of guys like jammed that steel beam like up there and like took out the main structural wall of the house. Lots of fun. I have a 2-year-old. I thought, like, let's paint it red. I like kind of into Gaiolenti, which I was having a moment with, which I'm not sure has anything to do with Gaiolenti, but she had a color scheme like that. Anyway, having all kinds of fun with this I-beam. And slowly but surely, of course, like I got this other blue chair, and I got a red light, and there's something fantastic, and they built a light that they're actually looking at that's in the distance, and I got this Muller van Severen thing, if it's another color. The point is I had like a real problem, and I was like, I really don't like this column. So I called Inge and Jan. I actually ran into them in Venice like this year, and I was like, can you tell my wife that we gotta get rid of this blue column? Like we gotta tone it down. So and that's like, I don't know, whatever, Venice opened in May, right? And there's one of, there's like a mini shrine to them anyway, right? Their flag and a chair that Jan and Inge made. Anyway, so it was already there, and I said, can you just tell Ezra that it's gonna be better in chrome? And then Jan and Inge say, in this restaurant, a very nice restaurant, say like, no, we'll come and we'll wrap it, right? We'll come and wrap your column. And Ezra's like, great, okay. And then they kind of resolved it, because you didn't have to talk about it. Like, suddenly it was a project and an event, and like, I didn't have to convince her about it at all. Like, the blue was fine, right? She was fine to get rid of the blue. Meanwhile, like, of course, they rock up with another column and proceed to wrap it, and that's still there. And I bang into it all the time. But I also love it. So I just had to mention it because it's like my little Inge thing in my house that's right in the dead center of my house, right where you want to walk. And Jan and Inge were like, that has to go there. And that was like an idea to reduce, to like, the whole concept was to reduce, Like, it was like, let's get the blue out of there, let's reduce, let's like quiet it down inside my house. Anyway, that's the result. I don't know what that has to do with the 4x4x4, but you can figure that out. Oh, that is in the wrong order. I was just trying to express that I had that I have a color problem. But anyway, I still have a color problem. 4 people. It's actually the only photo of like all of our stuff. That's Saskia Dietz. She, we designed a kitchen for her. I wonder if we're about to enter the kitchen section. I spent all day in this lecture and I can't remember what comes next. It's crazy. Sorry. But it's a kitchen that we made, and we're trying to make kitchens and things that are like bodies that are in discussion with you. So I said just now like that I really like this when furniture or columns or objects becomes human in some sense, and therefore you kind of measure yourself against them in a pretty straightforward way. I think that's what Inge and Jan's column is about too, by the way. And so these, I've been working on kitchens that try to kind of divide functions such that you relate to them, and kitchens aren't anymore like this weird Frankfurt idea or even Bauhaus, or they're just not modern anymore. They're about people. Getting bigger. We're starting to make bigger things. This is a house. I wish that Barbara was here to tell me what 1-4 more means, but I like it. It has to do with like these different volumes that are coming together about in the same, not unlike the bed story. So it's a house that is to be rented and owned by quite more people than would ever go there, meaning it's kind of like a clubhouse for 6 families. But it's a really small house, and it's got 6 bedrooms and Jack and Jill toilets, which is like a fantastic word that I think has not reached this country, but that's like toilets that you access from 2 rooms on the sides. It's called Jack and Jill. It's like it's a very handy design trick. And so what it is it's like what I do call the motel. So it's a motel, basically. I mean, conceptually, it's the tiniest motel in the history of time. But it's nonetheless like there's a German word for it that's really good that doesn't exist in America, like Laubengang. There isn't a good word for Laubengang in English, which is like this, like the circulation, unless you walk through the bathrooms, is on the facade. And then you've got these 6 rooms, and then you've got a kind of semi-outdoor new volume that's a staircase. And then you have, I forgot to mention a really critical thing. It's in a place that floods like crazy. Hence the sticks. Sorry, that's like critical information, because otherwise you're like, why is that like that? So it floods, like it will really, really flood. Like it's where Hurricane Sandy destroyed the house that was previously on there, which was like a massive hurricane. And I've actually seen the water like up to like table height which was like a big deal to get there, like on a boat, like driving on a boat. I happen to own the piece of land myself also with other people, so it floods. Anyway, so that brought me to this other thing, the public space, which I ripped off this other idea called Neues Landschaft, not the office interior concept, but this idea that Frei Otto had, which is kind of in the Oko House. But there's a drawing of around the same time as the Oko House, which is a house in Berlin where people could build what they want on concrete slabs. Anyway, he had another drawing where like the floor plates the part that Frei Otto gives, not the part that the people get to build, is like actually like island shaped. I don't know if anybody's ever seen this model or drawing, but it's like I should have a photo of it. I have a kind of no reference rule that might be stupid, but basically like that thing is like the new land, right? So it's like new land, staircase, motel, and like public things, kitchen, dining, living happens in there, staircase, and everybody sleeps over there. And then it's by the beach, so in theory you don't actually spend that much time in the house. It's a function, and that's going to get built. 4+1. So this is a kitchen that I made for Brandon Huber in his new fancy tower, just finished. Both my kitchen and his tower, the tower, frankly, is more impressive than my kitchen, but that's another person's lecture. But nonetheless, I really love my kitchen, and he's a great kitchen client, actually. Because people can be really aspirational and weird about kitchens, and he kind of is. He has like that the thing to the left of the sink is like an ice machine, right? Like, Arno, do you really need an ice machine at the top of this tower? And it's like, I want to have a party there. And I'm like, okay, fine, ice machine. Like, out of only like a mere 4 objects. but it's working. And so like hiding inside there is all kinds of equipment divided. I'm very happy about it. You're the first people to see it. And I'm really happy about like fancy details. So, but I'm not going to talk about it. That's Arno's, we should get it the order right. Arno, that's Arno's house in Oko House. That's another Arno Brandl-Huber kitchen. Also good project that he should talk about on a separate occasion. But I did make his kitchen and his cabinetry. And this is 0 because we started thinking like, and I'm not totally sure that 4 has to do with sides anyway, just to step back. Like, maybe that's just wrong thinking in the first place on my part. So I apologize about that. But it's a simple enough idea. That column's given by Frei Otto, and the grid is given by another architect who originally built it before Arno got his hands on it. And we made a kitchen that goes around Frei Otto's column that I'm really happy about. Not 4. So, not 4 at all. 6, really, depending on how you want to count. We actually, and here I should pause and say, it says on the beginning of this Sam Chermayeff Office, but it's really June14 Meyer-Grohbrügge Chermayeff. And I would venture that this is one of the better things that I've ever been party to in my life. Is quite a big building, and I really want to thank my partner, Johanna Meyer-Grohbrügge, who for working on this with me. And we've been doing it together and still are for an unbelievably long time. So, very quickly, because it's almost done. And I'll get to the fun part of it being almost done, which to me is obviously the thing that matters. It's on this is like oriented properly, so it's on Kurfürstenstrasse, that's the border between Mitte and Schöneberg in Berlin. And it's the Strict. We should put in hooker photos. Yeah, there you go. See? So there, see the pink shorts? I'm not passing judgment. I'm just saying to the north of our site is a loud street full of people selling sex, and to the south is a garden that's quiet with nice light. So that just informs like a lot about the design, that it in a very hardcore way. Like, yeah. And we have this Nazi-looking building. It's not Nazi-looking. It is a Nazi building next to our site. And so Johanna and I, in our naive times, in the very beginning, thought we should work on this all the time, forever. And we didn't have children. I have 1.5 children. She has 2 children. Time has changed a lot, and it would be really hard to start a building like this now, knowing that this is really hard to do. But I did. And strangely, like the one that we did back then is actually built now, which is, I thank also my clients in this case. We had just briefly to like lay out the parameters apropos this rules game. I also made a rules game that is now very much made in concrete and glass for millions and millions of euros. The rules were it's a Baugruppe. You're mostly German, right? Nod your head if you know what Baugruppe is, and then I don't have to go into it. No? Okay. Everybody does know. Okay. Yeah? Okay. All right. So in essence, though some people invested more than others, you couldn't screw somebody over by putting them like only on the street side. Right? That's like rule number 1, all apartments are passed through. Meaning like every apartment must touch the clearly quieter and nicer, brighter part of the site. So there's no way out of that. That's like rule number 1. Rule number 2 that we like, which is like fairly fictional, was we wanted to have bigger and smaller spaces. So we were like a little bit annoyed or observed or troubled by the fact that in Berlin, like a bedroom is more or less the same as a living room, that it's kind of all following a structural grid from 100 some years ago, maybe a little more, and maybe at best like a kitchen is a division of that same bay, and that also didn't seem like a very useful way to think about it. So we wanted to do, which is not an entirely original idea, big spaces and small spaces, right? So like you want to, and like the idea, a simple idea that the publicness of your house, I mean, public just means like hanging out public or anything but sleeping, I guess. We wanted to make like more big and the sleeping things more intimate as a balance. In any case, like every building in the middle of a city, we wanted to maximize square meters and buildable area because it's really hard to get out of that. And it's fine. I'm not complaining about it. So if you can imagine, if you can like from those metrics, like start looking at these models, you can see like in the one on the middle to the right, we thought like you could have duplexes where you sleep in this like relatively dark white place, and then you have like a really high big public space, for example. And then in the top right hand corner you can see like one side is tiny rooms in the background and one side is like big rooms on the foreground. That doesn't work, and as you can see in that model there's like 10,000 staircases. It has problems, but these are just like some options. It goes on and on and on and on about this. I actually, at some point, was actually fighting for like different volumes that like, that intersect each other, that not that intersect, but like align, and you have like small rooms and then bigger rooms, and defining that as a building. But that brings me to the third parameter, which is in Berlin, there was Hans Stimmann, who basically decided that cities are best like they were in the 19th century, like in a really baseline story, that you have to fill out the block. And we were like, fill out the block? That's weird. Like, we're modernists. We don't need to fill out the block. And I kind of stand by that. So the thing that we arrived at has passed through big and small spaces and is like the edge of what filling out the block can be thought about. It's actually that straightforward. This is from an old lecture. It's hard to give up. Like, for years I was like, look, we started. Because then there was a stop in construction. I mean, that's probably 5 years old. And that's an exaggeration. So let me try to explain the plan. It's so much easier to like grasp this in like if you actually have the model in front of you, but a model photo doesn't do the job either, although I'm about to show you one. There are 6 towers. Sorry that there aren't 4. Every other one is parallel to the other street. I'm going to come back to that, right? So starting from the left, it's parallel to Kurfürstenstrasse, then the next one's parallel to Frobrenstrasse, and so forth, right? And those are 4-sided towers, and they are double high. So where there are overlaps, you get small spaces. Where there are not overlaps, you have double high spaces. Really straightforward. So means also, for example, that every apartment except on the edges is touching 4 other apartments in the 4x4 endless story. Stop me if you get bored with this. You might be bored with this for some other reason, not to be confused with my lecture. But what I'm trying to do you get it in this thing on here? I don't know. We can come back to it if we need to. But basically, this section, which is somewhat of a lie, has each double high space, and everyone has a double high space. And the double high space is because it's a Baugruppe, and we set there's an infinite number of rules that we set. But one of the other rules that we set was like the poor people and the rich people all have the same double high space. So you can only expand yourself into like more intimate spaces, like meaning like, in essence, kids' rooms, right? I mean, you can call it whatever you want, offices, yada, yada, yada. And there are no walls, also. There are no interior walls, ever, except around bathrooms. I don't really know how I talk to my clients into that, and again, thank you, clients, if you're listening. And I'm sure that they will build walls, and that's fine. But at the moment, there's no kind of interior divisions, and the divisions of space come from this diagram that I just described. And then there's this other thing because of adjacencies that I'm into. And there's a kind of community thing that actually I think will become the real story of this building, which is that rooms in the overlap can belong to either apartment that they are touching, right? So in this particular case, I share a kitchen with Lars Muller. Meaning like my Johanna and I's house is the gray part, right? And then that kitchen block, which is not going to look like that. It's going to look like a cool one made by us, but so that you can typologically read it, like that, and he can climb a ladder and go get toast in my kitchen. And he has a much smaller apartment. And so in theory, that goes on ad infinitum with like, because there are no hallways, everybody touches 4 apartments, you have like all these connections, which will become clearer in a second. That's like the 6-tower thing from the top. Like, I just think it gets a little readable. I'll come back to the facade story when I show you pictures of the facade. And I guess we don't have to show the model photos anymore. So it's gone. That was like already a while back. I think there are beautiful photos by Oliver Helbig, who apparently taught here in the photography department, who's also a client in this building. So here we are. That's a little while back again. But you know what I'm driving at or trying to explain is they're just towers, double high. The two that you see at the same level are parallel to each other and to one of the streets. The one that we're standing on in this photograph and the one above us is of course parallel to the other street and makes a shift. It's so hard to read this, but maybe here you get it, right? Like the one we're standing on and the one in the slight distance are related to each other, and then a T-shaped double high space is made from the one above our heads in this image, right? And that's looking back into that same T-shaped double space, and so like the left and right ones are parallel to each other, and then the foreground one is its own thing. Yeah, sort of. You can ask questions about it later if you want. The facade. I have to admit, like a real thing that it's like, it just makes me seem so vain, but I don't have any new interior photos that aren't just like portraits of Johanna and I. But I thought it's like nice. I thought it's nice because we just did it, and it's just there, and they just finished the floor, and this guy was like, let's take portraits, and we're like, we'll do it in there, and I can only show you pictures that have us in it. But Johanna's great. So it's nice to show her a picture, but it is like, indeed, we haven't done the photos. So here we are again. Sorry again about, I'm not that vain, I promise. I really plan to show pictures without me in them. But that's that same space, which is like a particularly bright space, very high in the building, but actually that same floor plan happens everywhere in the project. And so that's what it looks like. Apropos rules, I made like quite a fight to try to reduce the pitch of glass, to like increase the pitch of glass or reduce the number of panes. And so on the outside, what is opaque is movable because is there a laser pointer on here? Doesn't matter. On like the far right side, which you can't really tell, or the next to where it says SVP, those are really, really wide panels. And so economically, they were trying to be like, no, we need to make it not 3 bays of glass, but 4 or 5. And I was like, okay, Johanna and I decided then we'll just make it opaque because it's lighter than the triple glazing and it works for the sound. So it's it's quite a weird composition that responds to the rules. And like economic concerns, and obviously my clients have like more than enough glass, so it's not like anybody's suffering from not enough glass. But here you get the tower thing pretty clearly. Also, which is so nice in this photo, and I didn't know it was going to be so cool, is I just took like the glass. We just took the glass that was required, which it turns out to be a big fight. Like there's like there's quite a bit more sun at the top of the building, and quite a bit more sun like in the morning, like the darker blue on the top left-ish, like the dark blue part. You know, that has a better U value than the bottom left, because that's what it needs. There was such a big push to like uniformize it and like all have the dark blue one and have it all match, and we were like, no, let's just do, like, we have enough matching, we fought enough things, so we'll just do it whatever you need, like whatever the most transparent is that you can have in that particular section. I tried to do it like in apartment, like on a single apartment, but they were like, no, fuck you, the glass people. But fair enough. The fact that they did this, I'm totally happy with them. So that's the only huge building that I have to show and have ever made, but I'm obviously really happy about it. And I look forward to showing interior photos. That's kind of an interior photo. That's, you know. And I don't even mind the sun shading, which I've never seen down, but I hope I don't mind it. I don't mind the little box anyway. Very 4. This is a new thing that we just made this summer. Italian guy who runs a bar called Bar Milano asked Arno and I and Barbara, by extension, our office, and to sell cheese in between our office, which is Brunnenstrasse 9 at the time, and which is a nice brand who we're building, and the bar, which is like 50 meters. There was like one empty space, and as you can imagine, we all went to the bar quite regularly, so the bar guy knew like the architects who come every day, you know, and was like, I want to sell cheese. And prior to that, which we should show actually in the next lecture, Arno and I built like a transparent sauna on the roof of this same, of our office, and which is Arno's house, or was at the time. Anyway, somehow like Arno convinced us to like trick the sauna thing back into being a fridge, and so we made a fridge. This is just a fridge. It's really nice though, and I'm really happy about it. It's you walk in there and you get your cheese. I recommend it to anybody who goes. It's a public space. It's really freezing cold inside there. It works, finally. Took a really long time to work out, but it's like our little mini office building with very expensive details that you would never be able to do in a house. But at that size, you can do all kinds of fun stuff. I even like the photos more with the stuff. So, and I should thank the guys who made it, Ertel and Zul, who actually made like all the metal work. Simon, it's like fantastic. Guys, don't work with them because then they won't have time for all my things. But otherwise, I really recommend them. And then I just remembered that 2 weeks ago, because I didn't go, I kind of forgot about it, but then I remembered on the train here, like, oh, we just opened an exhibition at the CCA in Canada. And I forgot about it until like 5 minutes before this lecture. And we had this idea a long time ago in Miami to make like a makeup facade so that you could chill and like put your lipstick on and charge your iPhone and, you know, do whatever you need to do, right? And we rebuilt that in Canada, and I'm very happy about it in their exhibition about how to, in an exhibition room about personalization, about self-obsession, and so that's our new thing. And back to 4. And 4 that's never aligned. I don't know if you noticed that it's never aligned. It's never aligned. Thanks. Was that? Yeah.
Thank you so much. And
good, right?
Yeah, I would say let's do the Q&A session in 10 minutes. So the people who are watching this online have time to get into the Zoom. And
I can smoke a cigarette.
Yeah, sure.